Mid-morning with Mike Graham. Talk Radio.
Now, all the talk this morning is about the cabinet meeting that will take place in about half an hour's time. Around about 11:15 this morning, there will be a massive cabinet meeting held by Boris Johnson and all of the members of the cabinet and all of their special advisors, whichever ones that Dominic Cummings hasn't fired. They'll all be sitting there talking about HS2, and it's more than likely that Boris Johnson will announce that we are going to back HS2, that we are going to pay for HS2, and that this thing that started was first announced in 2009 by Lord Adonis, which was meant to be ready for the first part by 2020, actually won't be completed for at least another 8 to 10 years and won't cost 3 billion quid. It will cost 103 billion quid. That, even by my estimation, is about the worst estimate that you've ever had in your life. Let's talk to Joe Rukin, campaign manager for Stop HS2. Joe, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Morning, Mike. You know what? I'm not sure you need me on because I think you've pretty much covered it all off.
Well, you know what, Joe, you're a campaigner to stop this. Is this the end of the road for you, or have you hit the buffers, as we might say?
Well, we don't know, because the thing is, although it's being trailed as a full decision to go ahead, we know it's not a full decision to go ahead because Phase 2B looks like it's going to be in review.
Right.
We're not sure that the Old Oak Common to Euston bit's going to get the go-ahead as well. And the big question is whether there will be a caveat on this decision, whether or not the government is basically ignoring the fact that HS2 has to pass certain tests to achieve notice to proceed, or whether it's just going to get the green light and we don't care about management capability, affordability of contracts, or the robustness of the revised business case.
Right.
Because if you look into those three things, if those three tests still apply, there's no way it can pass, especially, as you said, the cost is over treble what it was originally, and in that 10 years, we've seen the links to Heathrow and the links to HS1 cut. So you could argue that it's probably quadruple what the cost of what we've got left is. It's now admitted that, of course, we can't have the 18 trains per hour, which is true. It might sound like a technical point, but the fact that we've said for 10 years you cannot do 18 trains per hour at those proposed speeds. It depends on technology that has not been invented. And finally, with Oakerby, they said, no, you can't do 18 trains per hour. And the point is that the business case is based on that, or the service pattern is based on that, and this illusionary freed-up capacity is all based on that. Every argument for HS2 is based on the fact that it can do 18 trains an hour, which it can't.
Well, this is the great thing about these big projects in Britain. One, we're not very good at them. Two, they never deliver what they say they can deliver, and they certainly never deliver it on time, and they certainly never deliver it on cost. Now we're being asked to believe that there's a sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I mean, can you imagine the mess that will be HS2 once it eventually actually starts? Because if you go back through, just to interrupt you for a second, Joe, I said that it was first announced in 2009, right? The project then received a green light in the coalition agreement of 2010, a green light from Justin Greening in 2011, a green light from David Cameron's cabinet in 2012, a green light from the Queen in 2013. It goes on and on and on. But in fact, the green light has meant nothing but a red light.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A red light's a great example because HS2 has been officially categorised as red by the Infrastructure and Projects Authority, the government's own watchdog into projects, reported twice last year and said that the programme was unachievable. It was unachievable. That's what your own watchdog's saying, Boris. You're not going to pay any attention to that. And, it's also got the massive environmental damage because it's been designed for 250 miles an hour, which means it is straight and it is wide. So it's as if it maximises the environmental damage it does. And, of course, the cost, not just for building it, but for running it as well. And we've got this small matter of the fact that, there's a serious fraud office investigation going on. That was reported back in August that the Serious Fraud Office were investigating HS2, that there have been allegations of fraud, bribery and corruption.
Well, they've managed to spend billions and billions of pounds without laying a single line of track, haven't they?
Yes, yeah. And, well, you can make a lot of that back because a lot of that is the land that you've cleared in Birmingham and London, and obviously in the cases where they've actually paid for the farms that they've seized, because a lot of the time they haven't actually paid. If you're a homeowner, you get paid. You might not get paid what your house is worth, but if you're a farmer or a business owner, pretty much you're not getting actually paid when they've seized your land so far, which again, I would say that's another breach of the 2006 Fraud Act, because you're causing people a loss, and HS2 seem to think that they can get away with anything. And that's the problem with this. All of these issues that I've just brought up are basically saying to HS2 Limited, you can get away with anything. It doesn't matter what the facts are. None of the evidence, none of the facts matter. We're going to do it for the sake of doing it. And, you know, unfortunately, this is looking like we're getting the bungling Boris that we always feared we could get, because this is going to be Boris's blunder. And it's just a real shame that he can't see that.
Who's he caving into here? Because I'm always interested in who the money men are in these kind of situations. We've been told by, I think it was one of the former members of the review panel who we spoke to here. I think it was Lord Clark or something like that. Can't remember his name. But he basically, Lord Berkeley, I think, he came on and said it was a colossal waste of money, that the actual costings hadn't been done properly, that it was a complete and utter fallacy to suggest that, you know, because it's already cost $5 billion, you should just spend another $100 billion because it would be dangerous to cancel it.
No, this is the thing. You've got having all these arguments that are put forward, that none of them stand up to any scrutiny whatsoever. And it's been because, right from the start, there was never an assessment of what was needed for Britain's transport infrastructure. It was just a load of vested interest lobbyists went to Lord Adonis and said, you know what, Andrew, what we'd really like is for you to let us build the most expensive railway in the history of the planet. You're all right with that, aren't you? And it was the most expensive railway, mile for mile, in the history of the planet, back when it only cost 32.7 billion quid. Not now that it's going to cost, 116 is actually the latest estimate, because that was Tony Barker's 108.
Yeah.
Didn't include trains. The 106 from the government doesn't include trains.
And also, surely, to heavens, by the time we actually get on the train itself, even though we were supposed to be getting on it this very year, according to Lord Adonis in 2009, it'll be obsolete, won't it?
Well, absolutely. The very last thing you want, if you want a sustainable economy into the future, the very last thing you want to do is encourage more and more people to travel greater and greater distances for work. What you need is sustainable local transport, something that's actually going to get people out of their cars, something that's going to, people you look at the Northern franchise, it actually forced people back into their cars. It's been so terrible, the crush hour conditions that people have been, facing there. And what's HS2 going to do? And maybe there'll be these supposed benefits, trickle-down benefits of HS2 that might arrive in 20-odd, 30-odd years. No, you need that investment in local transport infrastructure, and you need it now. Great example, here where I live, Kenilworth, we had our station reopened last year. It carried 170,000 passengers in 11 months. Right. Just going one train now to Coventry, one train now to Leamington. 170,000 journeys taken off the car with one station.
Yes.
Because it was a train station that took people where they wanted
exactly
to
right.
work. Well,
every time I see any kind of questioning of people living in the north of England, in any part of the north of England outside of Manchester, basically, they're not really interested in HS2. They don't see HS2 as helping them at all.
Even the leader, even Julie Dore, who's the leader of Sheffield City Council, has already said it's not going to help it improve transport links in the north. It's a white elephant, and it's going to Sheffield. And if you can't, if you haven't even got the leader of Sheffield City Council on board, then why are you bothering? And what you've got is, as you said, follow the money. George Osborne knew that HS2 was over budget and couldn't be delivered on time when he was Chancellor. That's a matter of public record. The first thing he does, though, when he gets out of office, is he goes and sets up Northern Powerhouse Partnership, which spends all of its time lobbying for HS2. And oddly enough, when you look at the corporate members of Northern Powerhouse Partnership, there's a very distinct correlation between people who are the companies that are members of Northern Powerhouse Partnership and the companies that are getting contracts for HS2. It's odd, that, isn't it?
It really is.
People lobbying for it are making money out of it.
And that's the point. I mean, this is the other thing that depresses me about the way that government works in this country. It seems to work for the powerful and the few. It does not work for the many. If you live in Sheffield and you have to go to London for a job for one reason or another, there's already a pretty good way of getting there. You're not going to be worried about a new HS2 that takes you there a bit faster to a different part of town. And the tickets, by the way, are not going to be cheap, are they?
No. We said right from the start, HS2 is the fast train for fat cats. The long distance intercity journeys are the preserve of the business elite. They're the trains for the people who can afford them. They're not what the vast majority of rail users use. They're not what the vast majority of commuters use. They're what the people who are in the executive and political class who may travel to London once or twice a week. And it's very obvious that you need the transport infrastructure for the journeys that people actually take. And there are so many arguments put up for HS2 that are just absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh, well, we have got no capacity between London and Birmingham, for example. Network Rail have just said that there's no physical room for any more trains between London and Birmingham. The new franchise holder, Avanti, has said they can add 263 trains a week. That's 2 an hour with just minor tweaks.
Yeah.
Right, so there is clearly the capacity there, but you've got these people who have a vested interest in seeing HS2 built, who just say, no, we've got to do it. It's the only thing that can possibly be done.
Yes.
And, they sort of ignore the existence of the Chiltern line.
Right.
You ignore the existence, if you're talking about capacity from Birmingham to Leeds or Birmingham to Manchester, those trains are half the size of the ones that go from Birmingham, Leeds or Manchester to London. So it's not difficult to figure out how you can double capacity there.
They've also ignored the fact that you can't get to a lot of these stations because there's no bus service from whichever village you happen to live in. Boris now says, I presume this is a sop to the backbenchers who don't want HS2 to happen, that he's going to give 5 billion quid around the country to various different regions to get better bus services, more clean bus services, bus lanes and cycle lanes. Well, I can tell him, and I'm sure you could tell him as well around Kenilworth, you can't put bus lanes in the countryside because there's no room.
No, that's it. This is the thing. And you look at some of the villages around here where HS2 is going through, places like Burton Green, that have, basically, they are cut off from the bus service now. There is a bus between Burton Green and Kenilworth now once a week. And that's like 2-3 miles. Yeah. And that's just ridiculous. And it's not even on market day, for God's sake. But you look at things like this. Well, my mum has seen the bus services that she used cut, and yes, we need this local transport infrastructure, but it is a sop that is being given now. This 5 billion is not going to go very far. You need something that is more sustainable, something that is going to work forever. Like, a great example is the reversal of some of the beaching cuts. Like, for example, one that we've kept mentioning quite recently a lot is Skipton to Cole. Yeah. That bed's still there. It's 11 miles of track. There's a road that you'd have to get out of the way, so you'd have to build a road bridge. That's about the only bit of the track bed that's been built on. And for that, you can, for 368 million, that gives you a brand new line across the Pennines.
Yes. Well, there's a whole list of about 50. There's a whole list of about 50 different projects that they could have done instead of HS2, which would have been ready in 3 years' time, which would have helped the infrastructure of this country, and which would have cost half the amount that HS2 is costing. There is no way in the world that anybody can tell me or make an argument that HS2 is a good idea.
Yeah, and politically as well, a lot of these things like Skipton Coal, again, a great example. For Boris, that delivers for your red wall seats like Keighley, like Burnley. Why would you not do that? And, again, the Woodhead Tunnel is another one that gives you another line across the Pennines for less than 1% of the cost of HS2. And when you look at it in that context, you've got to wonder, why is this ever got on the table? And why it's got on the table is it's a gravy train. It's the consultants, the construction firms literally are running their own gravy train, demanding that they get to build the most expensive railway in the history of the planet. And you will notice that the more the costs have gone up, the more you've seen business leaders saying, oh no, it's absolutely essential, it's vital, it's a game changer, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it's transformational. All this bombastic, fact-free rhetoric has been used to prop up the case for this by people who are going to make money out of building it and the associated land grabs. Like, there was one on the telly last night saying, oh, look, we're already seeing around Birmingham International that it's a boost for business. And what that boost for business is that you've got a property speculator coming in and buying up the office blocks because they know they'll be able to rent them out for more money.
Oh, I know. And all the prices of everything around HS2 will go up. So from what I can gather, Joe, you're still just as fired up as you ever were. You're not going quietly, and you're going to try and still stop it, are you?
Yeah, well, we wait and see if notice to proceed is still required, because we simply cannot see how HS2 could pass notice to proceed. And, the other one is pushing for the the outcome of the Serious Fraud Office. And the other thing that Boris, I really don't know how he hasn't spotted this, quite frankly, and the advisors haven't spotted this, but in some of those fraud allegations, there is a suggestion that an American firm may have been involved. And if that's the case, the Securities and Exchange Commission in America might look at it under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. And do you really want that going on during your post-Brexit trade negotiations with Donald Trump? Do you really think he's not going to bring that up? You know, that's just insanity. And I don't think they spotted this at all. And that could be a right mess.